The Chinese room experiment moves to a level upwards. So it shows that intelligence is based on information. Information, as you remember, is made up of n data, well-formed according to a syntax, and meaningful. If there is not a meaning, if data are uninterpreted data are meaningless. And so from this standpoint, it's clear that according to this line of thought coming from Marvin Minsky to Turing, to Searle, to Floridi, you cannot qualify as artificial as intelligence this artificial representation. You see in a moment. I will come back to Turing test. Mustafa Suleyman wrote a book that I recommend. That's the coming wave. The coming wave of the artificial intelligence. And he says, but intelligence is about so much more than just language. One particular important dimension is the ability to take decisions. We don't just care about what a machine can say, we also care about what it can do. He says, put simply, passing a modern Turing test would involve something like following: an AI being able to successfully act on the instruction, go making 1 million on Amazon in a few months with just $100,000 investment. It might reach the web to look at what's trending, finding what's hot and what's not on Amazon Marketplace, generate a range of images and blueprints of possible products, send them to a manufacturer it found on Alibaba, agree on the contract, design a seller's listing, update marketing materials and product design based on buyer feedback. You understand a completely different concept, of course, and I will just share it because one thing is considering if from the theoretical standpoint, ChatGPT or any LLM language can pass the Turing test according to what Turing defined it. The other thing is considering if focusing the definition of intelligent on language is a fair enough kind of definition. So, I will skip this part and we'll move on visions. So according to the school of thought, this is summarize what I was saying, going from Turing to Searle to Floridi, our present technology is still unable to process any kind of meaningful information, being impervious to semantics. Our current computer never deal with meaningful information, but only with uninterpreted data, patterns of physical difference and identities. So, according to this line of thought, artificial intelligence has nothing to do with real intelligence. And here we have two major problems that we have to address. The first is defined as the frame problem. How can a situated agent represent a changing environment and interact with it successfully throughout time? Substantially, the example quoted by Floridi is the following one. The wasp versus a smart vacuum cleaner. The wasp, that's definitely less intelligent than a human being. If you take a wasp, consider that you have in summer in the garden, on the table you have a bottle half full of liquid, and the wasp enter it. And they start moving around, and in general is unable to find the exit. and start clashing against the walls of the bottle. And however, even with this, she's a lot smarter than the vacuum cleaner, the Roomba, if you remember it, that is defined as a smart vacuum cleaner. Smart, it's full of smart machines, isn't it? Stupid like my refrigerator. There is nothing smarter. The wasp is a lot more intelligent in any case, because when it gets out of the bottle, or is out of the bottle, is free to move around in the environment. But the vacuum cleaner is conditional by the perimeter that you set around it. And Florida was telling me, I have a vacuum cleaner as a productivity of 1/3 of what I could do, what I personally could do if I decided to clean the carpet myself. But I can do a lot of things in the time that he's using. The problem is that he has to do with the angles. And probably if we are going to build a room that are round, in order not to have angles inside, in order to facilitate the life to the room. That's not a joke. It's the concept of the environment built as an envelope. Consider the infosphere as an envelope in order to host digital inforks, human beings, mechanical artifacts, and biological entities. And considering that the artifacts the digital artifacts are becoming the main player inside this environment, the infosphere is structured more and more as an environment built as an envelope around digital artifacts. Consider the smart city. The smart city is an envelope in order to host with digital infrastructures, inforks, digital artifacts, more and more. So the issue of the frame problem is very important. How can a situated agent represent a changing environment and interact with it successfully throughout the time? Consider, how to say, the evolution of the vacuum cleaner and what's going to happen. This is a concept that Florida developed 9 years ago. So the problem that I'm raising to you is, what about drones? Drones are flying in the air. Are they overcoming the frame problem or not? Yep. No? Why?
No, I have a question. I'm not trying to answer.
No, okay. I'm not answering this question. This is one of the questions that I'm going to raise to you as a possible take-home projects. So substantially, where do we stand in overcoming the frame problem in terms of technological evolution? Okay? That's a fascinating issue because, of course, the issue is to answer this question, you have to study the Ukrainian drones. Do you understand? You should study the Russian ones, but it's going to be slightly difficult. But select what you want, the Iranian ones. How do they meet or do not meet the limitations of the frame problem? Question.
Does it really matter though if an agent can physically interact with its environment? What if I can just get to do my bidding?
I've not an answer for you about this, but I take your point. Okay. The other major theoretical problem is the symbol grounding problem. And the symbol grounding problem says, computers are purely syntactical machines, able to process and interpret data according to some rule, to some syntax, but unable to appreciate the semantic characteristics of the entity involved on their mutual relations. The question is, how I better move on. The question is, how do data acquire their meaning? That's the issue. How do data acquire their meaning? How do they do? What's the process according to which data are transformed into information? And this is another theme that I'm going to raise your attention. And I'm challenging you, and you will take your time, and this is one of the possible projects that I'm proposing to you. And problem is becoming insurmountable when their solution requires the successful manipulation of information, of well-formed data that are also meaningful. We know that processing meaningful information is exactly what intelligent agents like us excel at, but we don't know how exactly the simple grounding problem is solved in animals, including primates like us. You know that first of the technologies are not a monopoly of human beings, but even animals can use a stick in order to collect fruits from the trees. So from this point of view, there is a semantic threshold between us and our machines, and we don't know how to overcome it. And this is the second take-home project that I'm proposing to you today. This brings us to two visions. There are two visions of artificial intelligence: engineering or cognitive science. This productive versus reproductive artificial intelligence is the same. Reproductive AI aims at achieving, with non-biological means, the outputs of our intelligent behavior, resolving problems successfully to achieve a certain goal. The example is the robotic lawnmower or the robotic vacuum cleaner. Productive AI aims at achieving the non-biological equivalent of our intelligence, irrespective of the major or minor success of the result. Profoundly different. According to Turing Receiver and Floridi, reproductive AI has been an outstanding successful in addressing extremely complex tasks. However, as a branch of cognitive science interested in producing intelligent, productive AI has been so far a disappointment, because we don't understand how data can acquire a meaning. So that's the key concept, the second major theoretical problem that I've shared with you. Dijkstra, the question of whether a computer can think is no more interesting than the question of whether a submarine can swim. So in summary, from Floridi's view, artificial intelligence looks like a loose concept, referring to a number of disciplines, techniques, and engineering solutions, but it represents a revolution, not in the form of intelligence, but in the form of agency. And this is the last point, important point that I wanted to share with you. Reproductive AI, we are late. I don't know if there is something waiting for us outside. Does it look like? Great. Reproductive AI, the digital revolution, enabled the success of reproductive AI by re-ontologizing the world to adapt it to AI engineering. Re-ontologizing means enveloping the world around the digital artifacts that are the AI engineering products. The result is that today AI is not, according to Floridi, the result of the marriage between artifacts and biology. So the true definition of intelligence is the marriage between artifacts, mechanical artifacts, and biology. Nothing like this. The intelligence, artificial intelligence, reproductive or engineering artificial intelligence that we know, that we work on, is the result of the divorce between agency, reaching an objective that we have set, and the necessity of being intelligent to be successful. The divorce. So, the declaration that you don't need to be intelligent in order to reach a certain objective, but you can do it through sheer processing power. That's a very provocative way of thinking, of course, and it's not shared by everybody, but I believe that considering this is a line of thought that we have developed so far, I wanted to share with you the final conclusion of this. The ethical implications. In the past, you remember, agere and intelligere and intentionality were three inseparable aspects of the same phenomenon. So, in the past, we are used to consider that before we decided to do one thing, then we understand how to do it, and then we take action in order to reach it. In front of storm of agere without intelligere, so of digital artifacts not capable of intentionality, causal responsibility, accountability, liability, and moral responsibility cannot be connected anymore. In the case of the self-driving vehicle, look at this. I have put it together. This is nice. Depends on the levels of autonomy in automated driving. You go to a situation with a manual car manually driven, to different phases of automation, to the level where there is no, there is artificial intelligence that driving completely the car. You understand that the levels of accountability, legal responsibility, moral responsibility are very different according to the different level of automation. For this, I have even quoted the terms I have put even in the Italian equivalent. It's important that we distinguish, of course, the legal responsibility, the accounting responsibility, the moral responsibility, the causal responsibility, in order to understand how this can be attributed in the case, of course, of an autonomously driven car that kills a person. Who's the responsibility? Of the designer, of the manufacturer, of the driver? It depends, of course. It can never be of the algorithm. Doesn't have a legal responsibility. Why is reproductive AI so successful? What we are saying, due to the fact that we are building an AI-friendly environment. So the world is becoming an infosphere designed to adapt to the limited capability of AI, where the artificial intelligence agents are the real native entities. For instance, we designed the environment as envelopes compatible with the robots, enabling them to overcome the frame problem. Industrial robotics, Amazon warehouses. Amazon warehouses is typical. It's not being designed and built in order to facilitate the life of the human beings. On the opposite, it's a tough life to work in an Amazon warehouse because it's built around the robot in order to maximize its productivity. Where enveloping means reshaping into AI-friendly context. So we are wrapping the world in digital technologies, and we become more and more analog guests rather than their digital hosts. Enveloping the world enables the divorce between agency and intelligence and raises important ethical issues. I just quote the first three. From the control of the process to the control on the process that you have already seen in our lectures. The human intelligence might be put at the service of agere, exploiting intelligence to the benefit of memory. Just think about all the people that are working in training LLMs. So substantially as a position human beings as new artificial production means. And human beings as influenceable interfaces that we have already seen in the lecture about the human beings as interfaces. And finally, problem 3, is it possible to add ethical behaviors to the scripts of digital machines and thus to their algorithms? Good. I'm stopping here. In order to this, I'll leave it to your consideration. This is the starting point of my lecture on January 9th. So we are going to start from this point, and we are going to move on, talking about the four phases of the AI enterprises. The traditional predictive level, the generative level, so the LLMs, the agentic level, that means the situation in which we can have entities that are working with a certain level of independence and autonomy, to the so-called artificial general intelligence, that's the concept of the sentient machine. And all the implications that this raises. And this we are going to develop on January 9th. Of course, for this, you need to review carefully the materials of this lecture. Understand there's a lot of stuff. I apologize with you, but I preferred to give you a lot of stuff to think about, then postpone this lecture. Finally, this is my recommended readings and videos. And as you see, there is a lot of stuff. You can select it. And I recommend to start from the last one, John Searle. That was a TED speech, 15 minutes, Consciousness and the Brain. And he says, what's consciousness? It's one of the most entertaining pieces of work that I've ever seen. It's a really incredible speech. And these are my suggested take-home projects. I have 5 for you. Of course, this is highly optional, but I thought that this could be a good idea to give you some hints, some ideas about possible take-home projects. First, do data actually speak for themselves? Pros and cons. In which cases can we use a data-driven approach instead of the hypothesis-driven one, and vice versa? When is better to use an approach that's hypothesis-driven? The frame problem has been a significant concern in artificial intelligence. Have the latest technological advances made it possible to overcome this problem, or does it remain essentially unsolved? As I told you, study the Ukrainian drones. And not just this. Study, the level of autonomy in the relationship with the surrounding environment reached by the more advanced robotics that there is around. And then go back to see the theoretical roots. So the achievement, there are achievements that are technological achievements that represent a partial solution. But does this resolve the theoretical issues? So from this standpoint, you understand that ChatGPT is not enough. It's your brain that needs to, at this point, to intervene. The last three. The high symbol grounding problem. Where do we stand in understanding how do data acquire their meaning? The nature of consciousness and the perspective of AGI. AGI says that it's possible to build a sentient machine. Depends on the nature of consciousness. If the consciousness is not something magic, but is a piece of our brain or of our body, position I don't know where, and that we not identify the combination of DNAs that work in a certain way, probably can be reproduced. But otherwise, you understand, agere and intelligere, the 2 dimensions remain 2 incompatible entities in the process of building artificial intelligence. And the last one, this is technological. If and how quantum computing changes the prospects for AI development. That's smart, because this means, guys, that all what you learned about IT, you don't need to throw it away, but you need to rebuild it from scratch. Because, of course, quantum computing mechanics is something so incredibly complex and new that you really need to study all your life. And so I believe that these are interesting challenges for you, and I leave them to you, and I leave you 1 week in order to decide which of these, or the former ones, or other intellectual challenges you want to take. And of course, I'm going to acknowledge your originality, your content, and your style of presentation. Style of presentation is essential. Essential. I repeat for those who didn't hear this. In whatever company you are going to go, you will never have more than 15 minutes in order to make a presentation to your bosses about any project that you're involved in. So take advantage of this opportunity that I'm offering you. And pay a lot of attention to the style of presentation. No, it's so important. Very often it's the body language, it's the way that you say things, it's the fact that you believe in the things that you are saying. It's even as important as the content that you deliver. So that's the reason why, for me, is essential this project. Many people ask me, is it possible to get a certificate with cum laude even without doing the take-home project? The answer is yes, it's possible, but it's not likely, obviously. Because if you do this project and you show that you did an excellent project, you deserve more. So you set the evaluation scale very high. Okay, with this, thank you for your attention. I apologize because we've covered a lot of ground, and probably as being not easy to follow. But thank you for your attention, and I wish you the best, and I look forward to get your abstracts. And if you want, I'm going to stay here for some time in order to give you any leads that you want. Please, just a moment that I stop the recording.